Mother-in-law refused to attend our wedding because she genuinely believes I plotted to get married in the same year as her daughter is expecting a baby. Take away all the attention from her, but still had no idea of her mother's crazy ideas, and once she found out had this reaction about it. Now Mill is mad that she can neither attend her son's wedding nor see her grandchildren, and it's all because of her BS. I met my husband, Victor, just over 2 years ago, and I knew almost immediately that he was the one. We had so much in common, but also enough differences to keep things interesting. What made it even better was how easily we connected with each other's families. Victor's family was warm, welcoming from the start, or at least most of them were. The one exception was his mother, Martha. From the very beginning, I could tell she had some sort of problem with me. At first, I thought it might just be her personality. Maybe she was reserved or hesitant about letting new people into her life. But over time, it became clear that her issue wasn't about adjusting to me as a person. It was something deeper. No matter how much I tried to bridge the gap, I could never seem to do anything right in her eyes. I made an effort to win her over. I really did. I invited her out to dinner, just the two of us, thinking maybe we just needed someone-on-one time to bond. That evening, I picked a restaurant I knew she liked, complimented her endlessly, and even let her vent about her day without interrupting once. Still, by the time the bill came, she found a way to complain to Victor that I'd chosen a trendy place that was too noisy for her taste. Another time, I threw her a small birthday party at our apartment. I went all out, bought her favorite cake, decorated the place with her favorite flowers, and even invited her closest friends. Despite all of that, she left early and later told Victor that she thought the whole thing was over the top and that I had made it about myself by hosting it. It felt like no matter what I did, it wasn't enough. Over time, I resigned myself to the fact that Martha would always have some issues with me, but none of it mattered when Victor proposed. I was over the moon, and nothing, not even my strained relationship with Martha, could take that joy away from me. Victor and I started planning right away, and about 6 months ago, we picked a date. We were thrilled to finally share the news with everyone. We called our families to tell them, and while most of them were excited, Martha's reaction was lukewarm at best. She congratulated us, but it felt hollow, like she was just going through the motions. Still, I didn't let it bother me. Victor and I were getting married, and that's all that mattered. Not long after we announced our date, we got some more exciting news. Victor's sister, Penny, was expecting a baby. Penny and I had grown close over the years. She was more than just my future sister-in-law. She'd become one of my closest friends. So when she called to tell me about her pregnancy, I was genuinely overjoyed. We spent hours on the phone talking about baby names, nursery ideas, and how much fun it would be to celebrate both her new journey into motherhood and my upcoming wedding. It felt like such a special time for our family, but that joy didn't last long. A few days later, I got a call from Martha. At first, I thought she might want to talk about the wedding or maybe even congratulate us again. But, no. The moment I answered, she launched into what can only be described as a lecture. She told me that since Penny was pregnant, it would be inappropriate for us to have our wedding this year. She said it would take attention away from Penny's big moment and that I was being selfish for even considering going through with it. I was stunned. I tried to explain that we'd already set the date, booked the venue, and made down payments. Postponing it this time would not only be incredibly stressful, but also financially draining. Martha didn't care. She told me that it was my responsibility to keep the peace in the family and that delaying the wedding was the only way to avoid unnecessary drama. I talked to Victor about it that night, and he was just as shocked as I was. He assured me that his mom was being unreasonable and that there was no way we were changing our plans. Still, the conversation left me rattled. Was I really being selfish? Should I have considered Penny's pregnancy when we picked the date? The whole thing started to weigh on me. A few weeks passed, and I thought the issue had blown over. I figured Martha had realized how ridiculous her request was and had moved on. But then I started hearing from other family members, people who had no business being involved, asking why I wasn't willing to compromise. Apparently, Martha had been going around telling everyone that I was refusing to accommodate Penny's pregnancy and that I was prioritizing myself over the family. The worst part, she made it sound like Penny was upset about it, which couldn't have been further from the truth. Penny had been nothing but supportive and excited for our wedding. It all came to a head a few weeks ago when Martha announced that she wouldn't be attending her own son's wedding. I think she made the announcement expecting some kind of reaction from us, maybe that we'd beg her to come or try to change her mind. Instead, we were stunned. She claimed she couldn't, in good conscience, support an event that she felt was disrespectful to her daughter. She even accused me of intentionally planning the wedding in the same year as Penny's pregnancy to steal attention from her. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. The idea that anyone would go to such lengths to spite another person over something so joyful was absurd. After hearing this, Victor officially had enough. He'd been patient with his mom trying to keep the peace, but this was the final straw. He told her calmly but firmly that it didn't matter if she chose to attend the wedding or not because as of that moment, she was officially uninvited. He told her that he wouldn't tolerate her toxic behavior any longer, and he wasn't going to let her ruin what should be the happiest day of our lives. Hearing him say that lifted a huge weight off my shoulders. I had been so afraid of pushing him into conflict with his mom, but he took a stand all on his own, and I was so proud of him. When Penny heard about this, she was just as shocked and hurt as we were. At first, she tried to mediate, thinking maybe it was all a misunderstanding. But when we told her everything, how Martha had been spreading lies about me, accusing me of stealing the spotlight and rallying other family members to her side, Penny was furious. She called her mom immediately, and after hearing her side, she came to the same conclusion as Victor. Penny told Martha that she was done enabling her behavior, and that if she couldn't show up to support her own son, then she wouldn't get to see her first grandchild either. It was a bold move, but Penny felt it was necessary to set boundaries. Martha didn't take either confrontation well. She doubled down, insisting that we were all blind to my supposed manipulations and that we'd regret siding against her. She even tried to guilt-trip Penny by saying she was choosing a newcomer over her own mother. Penny didn't waver. She told her that respect had to go both ways and that if Martha couldn't see that, then she'd have to live with the consequences. Now the wedding is just a few weeks away, and I'm feeling a mix of emotions. On one hand, I'm excited to finally marry the love of my life and celebrate with the people who truly support us. On the other hand, Martha's absence looms large. I can't help but feel a twinge of guilt even though I know deep down that her behavior isn't my fault. Part of me wonders if I should have tried harder to make peace, while another part knows that some people just can't be reasoned with. So, Reddit, AITA, am I selfish for sticking to our wedding date despite Penny's pregnancy? Should I have postponed it to keep the peace, or is my mother-in-law the one who needs to step back and realize that not everything is about her? Hi, everyone. First of all, I want to say thank you for all the kind words and advice on my original post. I have read every single comment, and it's been so helpful knowing that I'm not crazy or overreacting here. Honestly, it's been overwhelming lately, and I think I just needed to feel like someone out there gets it. So here's what's been going on. Ever since everything blew up with Martha, things have only gotten messier. Victor and I are getting married in just a few days, and instead of spending this time feeling excited and happy, I feel like I'm constantly putting out fires. Victor's extended family has been spamming us with texts and calls, most of them asking us to reconsider and make peace with Martha before the wedding. The messages are all over the place. Some people are trying to guilt us by saying things like, "You only have one mother, Victor, or family is everything. You don't want to regret this later." Others are acting like we're the unreasonable ones, saying, "It's just one day. Can't you set things aside for the sake of the family?" It's exhausting. Victor has been amazing, though. He stood his ground the whole time telling anyone who will listen that we're done with Martha's behavior, and she's not welcome at the wedding. Still, I couldn't help feeling like maybe there was something more I could do to fix this or at least ease some of the tension with his extended family. That's when I decided to talk to Penny. I know Victor had already made it clear that we weren't going to invite Martha, but I just wanted a second opinion from someone who knows her better than I do. Penny and I talked about everything, and I asked her if she thought there was even the tiniest chance Martha could change her attitude. I told her I wasn't expecting her to step in or fix anything. She's pregnant, and the last thing she needs is extra stress. But Penny, being the sweetheart she is, said she wanted to try talking to her mom one more time just to see if there was any way to make peace before the wedding. I was hesitant about the idea, but Penny seemed determined. She said it wasn't just about me or the wedding. It was about the family as a whole. I told her repeatedly that she didn't have to do this, especially since it could end up being a stressful or upsetting conversation, but she insisted. She said she wanted to feel like she'd done everything she could to help. When Penny finally called Martha, things started off on a surprisingly calm note. Martha was emotional right from the beginning, telling Penny how sad and heartbroken she felt. She said it was devastating to think she wouldn't be part of her son's wedding or her daughter's pregnancy. Penny told me later that for a moment, she really thought Martha was being genuine and might actually be ready to apologize. But, of course, that didn't last. After a few minutes of playing the victim, Martha started turning the conversation back to me. She told Penny that all of this drama was my fault and that none of it would have happened if I hadn't come into the picture. She said I was manipulative, ungrateful, and that she'd known from the start I wasn't worthy of being part of their family. Penny was shocked. She tried to reason with her mom, reminding her that Victor and I are happy together and that this whole situation only escalated because of Martha's behavior. But Martha wasn't having it. She doubled down saying I had turned Victor and Penny against her and that Penny would regret defending me someday. At that point, Penny had had enough. She told Martha that if she couldn't take responsibility for her actions, then there was nothing more to talk about. She ended the call before things could escalate further and texted me right after to apologize. I felt awful that Penny had to go through that, especially with her pregnancy. But I was also incredibly touched that she was willing to stick up for me like that. Unfortunately, things have only gotten worse since then. Martha has been ramping up her campaign to make me look like the bad guy. She's been calling and texting more members of Victor's extended family, telling them that I'm tearing the family apart and that I've brainwashed both Victor and Penny. It's frustrating because a lot of these relatives don't know the full story. They're just hearing Martha's version of events, and she's very good at playing the victim. A few of Victor's aunts and uncles have even reached out directly trying to mediate or convince us to let Martha come to the wedding. One aunt said, "Your mom just wants to be included, Victor. This is a once-in-a-lifetime moment." Another said, "Weddings are about bringing families together, not tearing them apart." I know they're trying to help, but it's hard not to feel like they're ignoring how toxic Martha has been throughout this whole thing. One bright spot in all of this has been Victor's cousin who reached out to me privately after hearing all the drama. She said she wanted to hear my side of the story because some of what Martha was saying didn't add up. I was hesitant to get into it, but I ended up explaining the situation as calmly and neutrally as I could. The cousin was shocked and said she had no idea Martha had been acting this way. She even apologized for the pressure we've been under and said she tried to talk to some of the other relatives to help smooth things over. It was such a relief to feel like someone else in the family finally understood what we were dealing with. Still, with the wedding just days away, I feel completely drained. I'm trying so hard to focus on the excitement and joy of marrying Victor, but it's hard when Martha's drama is constantly looming in the background. Victor keeps reminding me that this day is about us and the people who truly support us, but it's hard not to feel the weight of everything that's happened. At this point, we've decided to stick to our decision to keep Martha uninvited no matter what anyone says. It's heartbreaking, but we know it's the right choice. We want our wedding day to be a celebration of love and happiness, not a stage for more drama. Still, I can't shake the feeling that this isn't over, and I have no idea what Martha's next move will be. Thanks again for all your support. I'll keep you updated if anything else happens. Fingers crossed that we can finally have some peace on our big day. Hi, guys. It's been a little while since I updated you all, and I know some of you are waiting to hear how everything went. Well, let me just say that the wedding day itself went pretty smoothly until, of course, it didn't. Victor and I got married, and while the ceremony itself was beautiful, it was the after-party that ended up being much more eventful than I could have ever expected. I've been processing everything that happened since, and I finally feel like I'm ready to share. The ceremony was lovely. Everything went according to plan, and we felt so much love from the people who truly matter to us. Victor's side of the family, minus his mom and some other relatives, were all really supportive. Penny, of course, was there with her beautiful baby bump, and she was glowing. The weather was perfect, the venue looked stunning, and the vows were heartfelt. And for a moment, it honestly felt like nothing could go wrong. But as the evening rolled in, we moved on to the small after-party we had planned with a few close friends and family. It was meant to be a casual, laid-back gathering where we could just relax and enjoy each other's company. We didn't expect anything wild, just some music, drinks, good food, and, of course, a few toasts. But as soon as the after-party began, things started to spiral a little. Victor had invited a few of his cousins to the after-party, and we had thought everything would go fine. They had always been friendly, and while not exactly close, we figured they wouldn't make waves. But, boy, were we wrong. Apparently, Martha had been busy talking to them throughout the day. I didn't find out until later, but she had been telling them all about her side of the story. She played the victim saying that Victor was turning his back on her and how horrible I was for ruining the family. I had no idea she had done this until the party was already in full swing. One of Victor's cousins came up to me completely out of the blue and said something that caught me off guard. She mentioned how Martha was really hurt by the situation and how it wasn't right to just cut family off. I honestly didn't know what to say. I wanted to defend myself, but I was also aware of the fact the wedding was supposed to be about celebration, not drama. So I just nodded politely and hoped the conversation would move on. Unfortunately, it didn't stop there. As the night went on, we moved on to the speeches and toasts. My brother gave a really sweet toast talking about how happy he was for Victor and me and how he was excited to welcome Victor into our family. He talked about how we were starting a new chapter in our lives and how that chapter was full of love and happiness. It was heartfelt and everyone in the room could feel the emotion in his words. But right as my brother finished his toast, another one of Victor's cousins stood up and the entire mood of the room shifted. He started talking about breaking families and starting over, alluding to how it wasn't right to leave one family behind in pursuit of another. Everyone froze. The tension was so thick, you could cut it with a knife. I looked at Victor and he had this look of utter disbelief on his face. He didn't know what to do or say. At first, I thought this cousin was just joking or maybe trying to add a little humor to the moment. But as he went on, it became clear he wasn't kidding. He kept pushing this narrative about how Victor was betraying his mother by marrying me and how breaking up one family to create another wasn't something to be celebrated. It felt like the entire party came to a halt. Some people were clearly uncomfortable and others were just confused. I was honestly shocked. I had no idea that any of Victor's family members felt this way. Victor stood up and tried to defuse the situation. He said that we were not breaking up any family. We're building a new one, and we love each other. That's what mattered. But his words didn't seem to make much of an impact. In fact, one of his cousins chimed in agreeing with the first cousin, saying, "It's just a shame to see how things turned out. Families are supposed to stick together." But now I tried to stay calm, but I couldn't just sit there while they continued to bash my relationship with Victor. I didn't want to cause a scene, but it was getting out of hand. The last thing I wanted on my wedding day was for these people to air their grievances and ruin the night for everyone else. I stood up, took a deep breath. I told everybody that I understood that there was a lot of hurt there, but what we were doing was celebrating the love between Victor and me. We were not trying to tear anyone apart. We're building a life together, and, yes, there have been some issues in our family, but we would prefer that people don't make unnecessary fuss about it. I was met with silence, and for a moment, I wasn't sure what to do next. I thought about just sitting back down and letting it go, but then something unexpected happened. One of Victor's cousins, who had been quiet the whole evening, finally spoke up. She kept it short and said something about how she had only seen love between Victor and me. She pointed out how all this drama didn't belong here and that everyone should focus on the positive instead of dragging up old issues. Her words weren't loud or over the top, but they were calm and clear enough to make everyone pause. The mood in the room softened a little, and some people started to shift uncomfortably, like they realized how out of line things had gotten. I was grateful someone spoke up, but it was hard to ignore the fact that the damage had already been done. I turned to look at Victor, and I could see just how upset he was. He stood up and made it very clear that this behavior wasn't acceptable. He reminded everyone that this day was supposed to be about celebrating our love and starting our life together, not about digging up family drama. It was obvious that he had reached his limit with the negativity, and his tone showed he wasn't willing to tolerate any more of it. After he spoke, no one argued back, but the discomfort in the room was obvious. A few people mumbled things under their breath like they were trying to justify what had just happened without admitting they were wrong. Others avoided eye contact altogether. The rest of the party felt awkward after that. Some people quietly left early, probably realizing they had crossed the line. Others stayed and tried to smooth things over, making small talk or offering their congratulations. Even though I appreciated their efforts, the mood wasn't the same. What should have been a happy, carefree celebration had turned tense because of unnecessary drama. I tried to focus on the positives for the rest of the night, but it was hard to shake off what had happened. It wasn't just about the things that were said. It was about how they made me feel on a day that should have been nothing but joyful. This was a moment I had been looking forward to for so long, and now it would always have this shadow hanging over it. That was the turning point. Several of Victor's cousins looked uncomfortable and started to mumble things about just wanting to help or not wanting to make things worse. But no one else dared to speak up against Victor after that. It felt like the rest of the night was tainted by that drama. People tried to salvage the mood, but it was hard to ignore the tension. Victor and I did our best to stay positive, but it was hard to shake off what had just happened. As the night wound down, I could tell that some of Victor's family was still upset. A few of his cousins pulled me aside and apologized for the outburst, saying they didn't mean to make me uncomfortable. But, honestly, I was still processing everything. The fact that Martha had managed to plant these seeds of doubt in her family's heads and that they had actually brought that drama to our wedding was just mind-boggling. I'm still so angry that Martha couldn't let us have a peaceful day. She wasn't there physically, but she was definitely there in spirit, stirring up trouble. The way she's manipulated her family and tried to paint me as the villain has been so exhausting. I guess what hurts the most is that the day that was supposed to be about love and new beginnings turned into a battleground for old grudges and unresolved issues. Victor and I are stronger than ever, but the events of the evening left a bitter taste in my mouth. I'm still processing everything, but I feel a bit better getting it off my chest. Thanks again for all your support, and I'll keep you updated if anything else happens. Hi, everyone. Sorry for the delay in updating you, but Victor and I took some much-needed time away from all the chaos. We went on our honeymoon, which honestly was a breath of fresh air after everything that had happened. For the first time in what felt like months, we were able to just enjoy each other's company without worrying about family drama or who was upset with whom. It was exactly what we needed to reset and focus on at the beginning of our marriage. But, of course, real life didn't wait for us to come back. As soon as we returned, we were met with updates about what had been happening while we were away. Penny, my sister-in-law, is now entering her 3rd trimester, and while this should be an exciting and peaceful time for her, it turns out Martha has been making her life unnecessarily difficult. Penny told me that her mom had been nitpicking everything about her pregnancy, from her choice of baby names to how she was preparing for motherhood. And what's worse, Martha had apparently been playing the victim to anyone who would listen, spinning tales about how our kids had turned against her because of me. Hearing this broke my heart, especially for Penny. She's pregnant and already dealing with all the challenges that come with that. Yet her own mother is adding stress instead of support. It wasn't just Penny who was frustrated. Victor and I were also fed up, and we realized that ignoring the situation wasn't working and that we needed to confront it head-on, not just for our sake, but for Penny and her growing family too. I decided it was time to face Martha directly. I wasn't sure how it would go, but I knew that avoiding her wasn't an option anymore. So I arranged to visit her at her house, and when I showed up, she seemed surprised to see me. At first, I think she assumed I was there to apologize because she started saying things like how she'd consider forgiving me only if I left Victor and stopped ruining their family. That was the final straw for me. Before she could go on, I stopped her and made it clear why I was there. I told her that I wasn't looking for her forgiveness because, frankly, I didn't need it. Victor didn't need it either. What we wanted was peace, something she seemed intent on destroying for everyone. I told her that it was painfully obvious to everyone but her that she was the root of so much of the tension and unhappiness in her children's lives. I explained how her actions had affected Penny, who should be focusing on her health and her baby, but instead was dealing with unnecessary stress caused by her own mother. I reminded her that she was supposed to be a source of support, not someone who tears down her own family. And while I spoke calmly, I didn't hold back. I told her that the only thing any of us wanted from her was for her to stop. Stop with the manipulation. Stop with the guilt trips, and stop with the drama. Martha looked stunned, probably because she wasn't used to being called out like that. For a moment, I thought she might actually listen, but then she went back to her usual tactics, saying that I had brainwashed Victor and Penny and turned them against her. She even implied that I'd done all of this out of jealousy, which honestly just proved how deep her denial ran. I left shortly after knowing I'd said everything I needed to say. I wasn't expecting Martha to have a sudden change of heart, and I was right. She didn't. A few days later, we heard from other family members that she was still talking badly about us, twisting the story to make herself look like the victim. At this point, though, I wasn't surprised. People like Martha don't change overnight if they ever change at all. The reason I confronted her wasn't to fix her or even to get her to see my side. It was for closure. I needed to stand up for myself, for Victor, and for Penny. When Penny found out what I had done, she called me in tears. She said she felt so relieved that someone had finally spoken up for her because she was exhausted from trying to handle it all on her own. She told me she was grateful to have someone in her corner, and that meant everything to me. Since then, we've all agreed to set boundaries with Martha. We don't go out of our way to engage with her anymore, and we've made it clear that until she can show some respect and maturity, she won't be included in our lives. It's not an easy decision, but it's the right one for our mental health.